Welcome back to the fourth episode of the Infinite Income Podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk about a topic that one of my followers commented on my social media, and they said, how can I use anger to win? Or how did you use anger to win in the beginning of your business? I think, ironically, one of my friends said this, or I don't even know who said this, someone quoted this, but they said, you can't hope for an extraordinary life doing ordinary things. And so the irony is that to have an extraordinary life, we have to do difficult things. But whenever those difficult things arise, we always complain about it. And I've thought about that a lot lately because when I was trying to build my business, I grew up in a very conservative household. My dad was a teacher. My mom was a stay-at-home. I had 6 siblings. And so there just wasn't a ton of money to go around. I didn't grow up poor by any means, but there just wasn't a ton. Okay, that's the easiest way to put it. And because of that, I was a first-generation entrepreneur. I don't really know anyone in my family who's been an entrepreneur or anyone who's ever even tried it or attempted it. So I'm even going to back up to when I was a child. So growing up in a conservative household, I was picked on a lot as a child because I had 2 older sisters. And I think part of it was I was just a very, nice kid. I had a good heart. I had 2 older sisters. We would do tea parties and dress up. And, I didn't think anything different of it. So as I was going through school, I didn't realize till about 6th grade, I was being made fun of quite a bit. And I was being bullied. And around 6th grade, I got a lot of anger towards those individuals, and I started going to the gym before school. So I went to my parents. I said, hey, I just want to start working out. And really, I just wanted to be able to defend myself from these bullies. And I started going around 5:30 in the morning. I'd work out for about 2 hours. I'd just lift weights. And my mom would pick me up and take me to school, where I would start going to first period, which was typically gym class. And during this time, after about 3 months, I almost quit multiple times, but I kept doing it. And after about 3 months, my muscles started to grow. It didn't hurt quite as bad to work out. And I started getting a lot of compliments at school. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I put in hard work and I got this immediate result and benefit from it. And so I started thinking, man, if I can just apply this to sports and girls and academics, all these things will start going my way. And so I used a lot of that fuel as a young child to push my way through school, to push my way through sports. And I became a straight A student in school, top of my class, one of the top of my class, I wasn't valedictorian, but I was like top of my class and did very well with girls after that. Didn't get made fun of anymore. Was one of the top players on my high school teams for football and basketball. Knew I could take football farther just because of my athletic abilities. And I started pushing as hard as I could in football all the way up till about 22. And I had aspirations like probably every other athlete in high school, or a lot of athletes, to play in the NFL. And I got to the Division I level when I got hurt a bunch. I had a bunch of shoulder surgeries. I've had multiple labrum tears. And I also don't think I was good enough. I played with first-round draft pick Ezekiel Ansah, went 5th pick in the draft to the Lions, played 6 games in college, or started 6 games in college. I played with Damian Williams. I think he went 2nd round to the Chiefs. Where he played for the Chiefs, at least when they won the Super Bowl. Played with Randy Gregory. He was on the Dallas Cowboys for years. Now he's with the Denver Broncos, signed like a $44 million contract. So I played with some very high caliber players, and they were just better. They just were more talented than everyone else on the field, no matter how hard they worked. And that was the end of it. There was really nothing I could do about that. So when that ended, all this status and accolades that I'd gotten were completely taken away from me, and I was no longer that person. That was a very dark time for me. As I was going back to school, it was fun for about 3 months, like just being a normal person, just going to class, not having anything extracurricular to do. And then I started, realizing, man, this is just not for me. Like, I'm not going to be happy sitting behind a desk or even being an engineer for the rest of my life. Like, it's just not what I want to do. And so I had a lunch with my mentor, David Fry, and he convinced me to start a business. Now, when I was going to start this business, he convinced me to drop out of school. My parents were against it. My girlfriend at the time was against it. She broke up with me because of it. Her mom was against it. And looking back now, I think that's actually why she did it, because she didn't feel like I was going anywhere, right? Even though I did all these things, people just thought it was a really bad decision to not get my degree. So as I drop out, I'm building a lot of anger. I'm building resentment towards my family. I'm building resentment towards my friends. I'm building resentment towards my ex-girlfriend. I'm just building resentment towards the world. I was a very angry person. And I was also upset about how football ended because I got injured, and there was nothing I could do. And so from 22 to 25, I won't go into crazy amounts of details, but I'm struggling. I'm trying to build this business. I'm not making any money. It was an online fitness business. For those of you who don't know my story, it was I called it the Rapid Muscle System. It took me a year to build it out, and then I couldn't sell it, which is also why I recommend people don't build stuff out first. You can literally sell products or sell services and then do it after. It's one of the best ways to build businesses. And so as I'm coming to 25, I'm just super resentful, right? I've done door-to-door sales. One of my younger brothers, he used to send me a text and say, yeah, dude, how's the business going? In a very sarcastic way, kind of alluding to he knew it wasn't going well. And I just didn't feel like I could talk to anyone because every time I talked to them, it just almost put me in a worse mood, or it made it negative. And then, I felt down about myself. I didn't have a nice place. I didn't have a nice car. I would go on a date with a girl and I spent $100, and that was my whole day of wages as a server. It was a lot for me at the time. And so I was just a very hateful, upset, angry kid. I remember multiple times I almost quit and went back to school. And the only reason I didn't quit is I would call my mentor and he would just convince me, say, Tanner, like, you can do this. This is part of your process. It's part of your story. Like, you will end up where you want to go. And at the time, I just couldn't see it. Like, I just couldn't see it. I couldn't believe it. But I'm so blessed I had him, because I know for a fact I would have gone back to school without him. And, to date, I've made 70 million plus. If I had gone back to school, I probably in the same time frame would have only made about 600,000 as an engineer. And so the opportunity cost was massive, absolutely massive. Getting back to the story, like, the reason I kept going is that I was just so afraid of being a loser. I wish I could give you guys a better answer, but I just didn't want to have to admit to my parents that they were right. I didn't want to have to admit to my ex-girlfriend. I didn't want to admit that I'd failed. And even as an athlete, when football ended, I didn't feel as if I failed because I'd pushed myself as far as I could go. I genuinely feel that I used all of my God-given abilities to the best of my ability, and I had no regrets because I did all the two-a-days. I did all the summer workouts. I hired the Olympic weightlifting coach. I worked with a guy named Tim Swords he coached the Olympic weightlifting team. I don't know if it was last Olympics or the one prior, but he's coached the Olympic weightlifting team. I hired Terrence Davis, who was a ex-professional athlete in the NFL. I hired Jay Barnett, same thing. And I just used I felt like I'd done everything I could do, and that's a very gratifying feeling. But with this business, I just knew that it couldn't be as hard as I was making. I knew there had to be a way for me to make the income I wanted and have the freedom I wanted. And so every time I had a chance to quit, I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, almost without thought of anything else. I remember thinking that I would rather be homeless than fail. And finally, after 3 years of failing, I remember I finally saw an ad on Facebook, that was talking about, hey, join this program on how to build an online fitness business. And I joined it, and I became one of the best students of that program. And I've gone on since that time to make more money than anyone in that program. Some of those people actually even hired me. Some of the students in that program at the time hired me, so on and so forth. And it completely changed my life. And so I think using what you have is extremely important. I think if you're angry, that will help you in the short term. Now, it's not a great long-term solution, right? Because you're just mad at the world and you're upset all the time, and you're not going to be very happy. But if you have to use that in the beginning to get to where you want to go, it is very powerful. And you have to understand as well that a lot of times, we tell these stories about how our families don't support us and our friends don't support us, but they're not supposed to, because you're going down a path that most people fail. And at the end of the day, your loved ones don't care if you're a billionaire or a millionaire. They just want you to be happy. They just want you to be okay, right? And so they just want you to choose something that they know you'll be okay with, right? And so it makes sense that they don't support you or they doubt you. And also, you have to understand, people doubt you because they don't want to have to admit to themselves that they could have done what you've done. And that's a hard pill for most people to swallow. Something that I've actually recognized in myself, and part of why I think I've been successful to a degree, is I always look at what I can do better. If someone's doing better than me, I always look at what they're doing versus going, oh, they're just lucky or this or that, because that's just, even if it's true, that's not a way to learn. And you're taking the power away from yourself. Whenever you can look at yourself and say, this is happening because of me, that's a much better situation to be in versus you're giving your power away to someone else. And so what I would recommend you do is, if you're in business right now, you're trying to make income and people are doubting you, they say you can't do it, you're struggling, good, because you can use that anger to propel you to levels that maybe you won't be able to get to. And I guess my biggest piece of advice that I could give you is, one, use that anger to your advantage. Two is cut all your expenses, live as cheaply as you possibly can, bunk up with someone, move home, sell your car, whatever you need, use a bicycle, any of those types of things. And then 3 is just do not quit, because even if it takes you longer than the average person, if you do not quit, you will eventually figure it out. Genuinely, is that even if you're not as good at sales, maybe you're not as good as marketing, maybe you're not very good at messaging or back-end systems or operations, if you're willing to learn, you will get there. You'll get good enough that you can start making income. And maybe you won't be the next Oprah Winfrey, but you'll be the best you. And that's all we really have in this life. You're not going to remember anyone. No one's going to remember you. And so it really comes down to you being the best version of you, so that when you die, you can look back at your life and be satisfied with the effort that you put in on a day-to-day basis. And something that I'm very grateful for is I'm always striving for more, but I can genuinely look back on my life to this point and be extremely satisfied with the decisions I've made or the progress I've made, because I'm always trying to be my best. I'm not always my best, or sometimes I fail, but I'm always trying to be my best. So you don't have to just have rainbows and daisies and meditation and sunshine in the beginning. A lot of times it's dark. It's very dark energy. And I don't think I really started changing my mindset on going kind of from dark to maybe like cleaner energy until I was 3-4 years in. And really the shift for me is finally after, because even as I was building my company, once I got to $1 million a month, I started realizing, hey, this dark energy probably isn't good for me anymore, right? I had the penthouse, I had the Lamborghini, I had a massive business. I felt like I'd proved all the coaches wrong that I'd hired, that I thought their programs were very good. Like I just was constantly angry and kind of building competitors or people to kind of push against. And it took me a long time not to do that. And it's not bad though. I'm glad I did, because it got me to this point, being angry at my family, being angry at my ex-girlfriend, being angry at coaches, being angry that, this was how it was and the world didn't, give me more favors. But the irony is, once you get to the top, you look back and you realize that is why you got there. And that was actually the blessing. It's just in the moment, you can't realize it and you usually can't see it. But I'm so glad for all the hard things I've had to go through and the things I had to push through to get here, because that's what, again, creates an extraordinary life. You cannot enjoy it. You can't enjoy being at the top or the fruits of your labor unless you've gone through a hard time. So if you're listening, use anger to win. Use what you got. And if you're angry right now and you're upset, good, use that. And that took me very, very far. And I know it can take you very far too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll keep it short and sweet. If you guys are listening to this, whether it's Spotify, Apple, YouTube, make sure to subscribe and share it. It gets us out to more people. And my goal is that not only can I share inspiration with you, but I want to bring on a very high-level guest, but I'm going to be very picky about who I bring on. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys in the next one.